This is on ABBAS HUSSAIN from Behind the Gloves, and I'm here with trainer, looking very tanned, Mr. Dave Coldwell. Dave, how are you today?
Well, the tan's from Tenerife, not New York. I had a nice 4-day break in Tenerife for the family, the Friday after the Bellew-Eubank fight. And then I nipped over for Mickey Conlan's debut and the Golovkin fight as well in New York. So it was had a busy few days.
Actually, talking about that, Mickey Conlan's debut wasn't just a normal debut, was it?
Unbelievable. Listen, I've seen a lot of debuts over the year. I mean, I've been in boxing since 1990, and I've never seen anything like that with the atmosphere. You know, the Irish just took over. It was thousands just packed the theatre at the MGM, the Madison Square Garden, and the atmosphere was unreal. It really was fantastic. I'm so glad I was there.
Actually, Golovkin Jacobs, how did you score that? Because there was a lot of controversy. Well, there's a lot of different scoring.
Do you know what it is? For me, a close fight isn't a robbery, and for me that was a close fight. But I had it to Jacobs. I thought Jacobs I thought he outboxed him. I thought his boxing was really good, and I just thought that Golovkin just seemed a step behind him all the way through. Obviously, he dropped him, but other than that, I thought he was a step behind him all the way through. But it was every fight was hard fought and it was close. It's like, what do you like? Do you like the man coming forward? But I leant towards Jacobs, but it wasn't a robbery. It was just a close fight.
So obviously, I want to talk to you about one of your main guys, Tony Bellew. How's his hand, first of all? How's his recovery after the fight?
We're just waiting on his hand. I think we've got a couple of weeks before we find out whether it needs surgery or not. Once everything's settled down, he's under the best guy in the business really when it comes down to hands. So we're just waiting to find out. We'll know if it needs surgery, and if it does, then it does. We'll see what happens.
I want to talk to you about a fighter that's been calling him out, and you know what? I think he added you into one of his tweets as well, or it was on Instagram, Dylan White. Dylan's actually been quite vocal in regards to maybe getting a fight with Tony. What do you make of that fight in the future?
I like Dylan White, and do you know what? I respect his attitude because he's one of the few fighters out there that are willing to just go out and fight anybody, and he genuinely. I mean, I've spoken to Eddie about it, where he genuinely will fight anybody. He'll say, "Get me in, get me in, get me in." He'll fight anybody, and there's not that many fighters. There's a lot of fighters that'll kind of say it but don't want to do it. But he generally does. He don't fear anybody. The only problem is with Dylan, and he understands because. I think his response to a tweet that I sent him back was, "Why don't you go and fight Chisora again?" Because that was the most exciting fight that I've ever been to. Live, sat there, I couldn't believe what I was watching. It was like some Rocky stuff that, and I would love to see that again. A lot of people love to see that. A lot of people thought Chisora won. A lot of people thought Dylan won. So there's unfinished business there. So go and fight him. But he then said the money don't make sense. So he's got to then understand. I want Tony to retire, but being realistic, if he's going to carry on, he's going to have one more fight. If he has one more fight, then the options that are out there, Wilder, they've mentioned that they'll fight him, WBC heavyweight title. Parker, they've said they'll have it, WBO heavyweight title. And you've also got the option of if it's something that Tony wants to entertain, and if people are sensible, there's also the option of a Hay rematch if he gets over his injury. So you look at those three fights there, and the money that you're talking about there. So if we're going to talk about making sense, the money that they're talking about there for Tony is there. A fight against Dylan White, no disrespect, doesn't compare. So if he's going to have one more fight, he wants a fight that he's going to, number one, either you're going to fight for. Can you imagine fight for an heavyweight title, or there's the Hay rematch possibly. So really, I mean, Dylan understands business.
Is it a bit overwhelming maybe that once he's taken such a big scalp out that you get a lot of fighters naturally calling him out?
That's natural, and it is natural. But Dylan wants to become heavyweight champion of the world, so he can fight Ortiz. I think Ortiz is number one for a WBA or something. So fight Ortiz, beat Ortiz, you get a crack. Go after Wilder. I thought there was some talk about him fighting Wilder. So all of a sudden he's adjusted to go with and call Tony out, which is understandable because Tony all of a sudden he's attracting people because he's quite a valuable commodity, and there's a lot of money, and all fighters are in this game for money, and so because they're chasing the money, they've got to understand that it then doesn't make sense for a fighter that's got the options of fighting up here for big money to fight for less money, because it's same. It's like me if I had an heavyweight prospect that's 7-8-0, you know, boxing at British level or just under, and calling out Dylan Whyte and say we want that fight because we'll get paid more fighting Dylan Whyte than they would for some Latvian. But yeah, it doesn't make any sense for Dylan Whyte. So you've got to understand everybody's point of view. I understand Dylan's point of view because he wants a big money fight against Tony and a big, you know, publicity fight against Tony. Could you imagine shit that go off at press conference between them two? So I understand that from Dylan's point of view, but you know, it's not something that's really going to happen.
We've sort of established that the money's in the heavyweight game. It is maybe not as much in the cruiserweight game, because we spoke to Alexander Usyk yesterday, and he obviously wanted the fight with Tony Bellew as well. But is that yeah? So
Usyk's a great fighter. He's going to be a great champion, and I also think that Usyk will eventually move up to heavyweight. You know, I think he's a very good fighter, but. Again, the cruiserweight division is full of killers. People make this assumption that it's a shit division because they can't pronounce all the names, and that's what it is, because they're not household names. So they think that it's not a good division, but it's a brilliant division. It's full of killers. It's stacked, and the reason why he's winning, then he gets knocked out. He's winning, then he gets knocked out, because it's so competitive. Because everyone can punch in that division. And Usyk's another one of these kids that you know, a great fighter in a great division, but again. If you're talking about a man that's going to, you know, he's won a world title and he's now beaten David A, and he's got one more fight left if he's going to fight again. Why would you take small money when you take massive money for another big challenge? You know.
Finally, before obviously you've got a fighter that you want to introduce me to, but I just want to quickly get your thoughts on. There's been a bit of back and forth between Tony and Chris Eubank Jr. on Twitter. What's that about? What is that about?
What's that about? That's about somebody who's wanting to piggyback on somebody else's name and limelight, and you know, he did this. He did this before when he you know he was going on about Triple G, and then they had the option to fight Triple G, and he didn't bother. He's good at it. They're very good at media and getting attention. And you know, he was convinced that his mate Hay was going to blow Tony out in 2 rounds. Convinced, you know, and it didn't happen. And so what's he saying? He's better than his mate. It's just, listen, I could call out Anthony Joshua. It ain't going to happen. You know, anyone can call out anybody really, but he's got people talking. He's very good. They're very good at what they do. Respect to him, you know. But I think I saw his tweet where he said, "Come down to super middleweight." I'm not being funny. Bellew couldn't do, you know, he had to move to cruiserweight because he couldn't do light heavyweight. So going down to super middleweight, it's just, you know, it's a laugh really. It's a bit of a laugh.
Maybe you got.
Hey Fight fans, if you haven't already subscribed to our channel, make sure you go ahead and do so, because Behind the Gloves is worldwide with our coverage. All you have to do is click this little link right here.